Good morning, everybody, and you're really welcome to our second session of the Virtual Career Series. And today we're focusing in on science and agriculture, and we are delighted to be joined by a company who does not need any introduction to anybody at DKIT or the surrounding areas, and that's wuxi Biologics. We're absolutely delighted to have Dara Sexton, who's talent acquisition business partner at wuxi, Roland Rafferty, who's manufacturing lead at MFG6, Summer Morgan, who's a bioprocess associate and a DKIT graduate from pharmaceutical science. We're also joined by Carl McGrath, who's a manufacturing graduate and is on the graduate program and has also worked at wuxi as an intern. So we're really interested to hear about Carl's journey. And finally, we're joined by Christina Thiersman, who's a talent acquisition coordinator. wuxi have been a huge support to DKIT over the last couple of years. It's hard to believe that they're only really in situ for about 2.5 years. I think wuxi knocked on DKIT's door before we even knew they were going to come to the locality, and they've been hugely involved in supporting us over those last couple of years across intern opportunities, obviously, graduate level opportunities, and also a huge amount of work I know in program development. So we're absolutely delighted to call wuxi partners at this stage, and we're delighted that we have all the guys presenting us today as part of the virtual career series. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to, I think, Roland at the start, perhaps.
Correct, Anthony. Thanks very much, Anthony. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to meet with you all. So my name is Ronan Rafferty. So as Anthony mentioned, I'm the lead for MFG6 here in wuxi Biologics in Dundalk. So some of you might be wondering why we called MFG6. Well, actually, we have two manufacturing facilities here in Dundalk within the same building. There's MFG6 and there's MFG7. So MFG6 is what's known as a traditional or a perfusion manufacturing process to manufacture biologics, and MFG7 is a traditional fed batch process. And 6 and 7, well, they're the numbers of the manufacturing sites that have come on live. So we're number 6 and number 7 respectively, but globally we're up at MFG 19. So in terms of expansion from the 2.5 years that we've announced that we were establishing this site here in Dundalk, we're now up at 19 manufacturing facilities. So certainly wuxi Biologics is going from, in terms of growth globally, has expanded almost exponentially. But more on that anyway as I go through the presentation. So just to give you a flavor of what we're going to do today, I'm going to give you an overview on wuxi Biologics as a company, our mission statement, what we do as a business, where we are globally, some of the partners that we have, and then just give you a quick overview of two of the manufacturing processes. And then we're going to have an introduction from Summer Morgan. So Summer is a DKIT graduate, and she's going to talk about her experiences in wuxi Biologics, and she's started. And then we're going to have an introduction by Carl McGrath. So Carl actually was part of our intern program last year, and now he's a BPA or a graduate BPA working in wuxi Biologics now. And then Dara is going to give an overview on some of our HR programs, our proud culture in particular, which is an overview of the kind of the cultural behaviours that we have here on site in wuxi. At the end, we'll open up to any questions that you might have as well, whether it's about wuxi Biologics, career opportunities, anything at all, any queries that you might have about wuxi Biologics. Okay, so without further ado, let me just move on to the slides. So what are wuxi Biologics? What do they do? Well, our vision is that every drug can be made and every disease can be treated by building an open platform or an open access platform which can deliver comprehensive capabilities and technologies in the global biologics industry. So what does that mean, really? It means that we're very much an adaptable biologics manufacturing company who strive to manufacture processes regardless of how the platform for that particular molecule is structured. We look at accommodating that platform. Biologics processes, by their very nature, they can be very varied, and it can be very challenging for a lot of companies to be able to fit these processes within their manufacturing facilities. So that's where companies like wuxi come, where we provide a very unique service. And what makes us different to other contract manufacturers is that we're a CDMO. So a CMO is a contract manufacturer, but the D in the CDMO is development. So we work with companies all the way from drug discovery all the way through to commercialization. So that's what makes us very unique. And we have a business model that's known as follow the molecule, where we engage with those companies from, as I mentioned, drug discovery all the way to commercialization. So we do scale ups, we do process characterization, we do drug product facilities, or drug product services. We work with them on their clinical trial material requirements and so on. So it's very unique, and it's not something that's offered by any other CMO at the moment globally. So our mission is to accelerate and transform the discovery, development, and manufacture of biologics through a comprehensive open access platform, enabling our global partners benefit and patients benefit worldwide. Just some of some of the achievements. So we're the first biologics company in China that has been certified by the US FDA, the EMA, and Anvisa. So there are regulatory authorities that are probably the most significant regulatory authorities globally. And we also provide a robust and premier quality global supply chain network in China, Ireland, the US, Germany, and Singapore. So we're not just a Chinese company, we're a global company. Okay, just move the slides. Okay, yeah, so I'd mentioned about follow the molecule. This slide here, while it might seem a little bit busy, it does give you an overview of the diversity of the molecules that we actually manufacture for some of our clients. We have a total of 334 products or projects at the moment. So that's actually a growth between 2019 and 2020 from 250 to 334. So that's a significant amount of growth. And towards the end of this year, we're expecting to see further growth in the total number of indicated or integrated projects beyond 334. But the molecules that we're mostly working on are monoclonal antibodies, biospecific antibodies, antibody drug conjugates or ADCs, fusion proteins. There are some other molecules there, such as RNA type molecules, and then also vaccines as well is a growing area of development for wuxi biologics. So if you look over at the pyramid over on the other side, we have multiple platform discovery engines. So that means it's platforms focusing on different means of manufacture, but also different means of different or delivering different product types, like the monoclonal antibodies, recombinant proteins, biospecific antibodies, and so on. In terms of the stages at which the molecules are at the moment within that portfolio of projects, we have 190 that are in preclinical, 101 that are in phase 1 clinical trials, 36 that are in phase 2, and 32 that are in phase 3. So we're starting to see quite a number of molecules that are actually now making their way to commercial. And towards the end of this year, we should see an increase from 2 commercial projects up to many more that we'll be able to report out on next year. So we have 135 first-in-class programs. So that's where we have a unique relationship with a client that we're developing a molecule all the way from discovery to commercialization. We have one of the largest portfolio of complex proteins consisting of monoclonal antibodies, biospecific antibodies, antibody drug conjugates, fusion proteins, and vaccines. So it sees that we actually have a greater diversity amongst our product portfolio compared to our competitors. And obviously, significantly, due to the surging demands of COVID, we have seen a robust growth of the monoclonal antibody manufacturing achieved here within wuxi. So this is a particular area of growth for us in 2019, 2020, and 2021. And we've also seen an expanding global requirement for mRNA type manufacturing for mRNA type vaccines to support the global pandemic. And that is for both drug substance and drug product. So anybody who is curious, what's the difference between drug substance and drug product? So drug substance is the manufacturing of the protein and drug product is where it is filled into either lyophilized vials or syringes. As I mentioned, we do have a global presence, and if this slide here, obviously we have the Dundalk facility in the centre. We have actually upwards of 54,000 litres of production bioreactor capacity, which is very substantial. But our main hub is based over in China. So we have Suzhou, where we have 48,000 litre capacity, Chengdu, again 48,000, wuxi City, 203,500 litres of capacity. So it's quite a substantial facility over there with a number of manufacturing buildings located in wuxi City. Shanghai is where we do most of our development and our drug discovery. We have 16,000 litres bioreactor capacity. Hangzhou, 12,300, and Suzhou, it's 7,000 litres, but that's where we mostly perform a lot of our biosafety testing. So these are our viral clearance studies, and we also do some virus testing as well globally within that facility as well for drug substance and drug product. Some of our more recent acquisitions include the Wuppertal facility and the Leverkusen facility in Germany. We also have a facility in Singapore, and then we're growing our presence in the US, where we have a facility in Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. Looking on the bottom left, you can see a graph that plots the overall growth in our bioreactor capacity. So the company was founded in 2011. So it was our 10-year anniversary this year. In 2012, we had 5,000 litre bioreactor capacity, and you can see where we're now up at 430,000 litre. We will plan to be up at 430,000 litre bioreactor capacity by 2024. So that's an estimate. So substantial amount of growth, particularly between 2020 and 2021. You can see we've moved from 54 up to 154,000 litre production bioreactor capacity. So substantial growth within the WuXi Biologics network. Some of our global partners are very much names that you'll be familiar with. So we do partner with 14 of the 20 largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. So a lot of global companies depend on contract manufacturers like WuXi Biologics. And some of the names will be familiar here to you, the likes of Pfizer, Takeda, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Bayer. But then there are some of the smaller companies, which are companies that are in development or developing drugs for very novel diseases, for a lot of what we call orphan diseases. So these are drugs that perhaps are used to treat diseases where there's an unmet patient need. And there are also drugs that perhaps only a very small fraction of the population actually suffer from these diseases. So that's where companies where the likes of Inhibrx, Oxford Biotherapeutics, AC Immune, where they specialize in developing these quite rare drugs for very rare diseases. This photograph here is an image of the site. So some of you may have seen the facility as you've driven past, and perhaps you might not have got a view of the facility just as close as this. But what we're looking at here is that the front of the building. Now, since then, we've had a lot more grass growing. We've a lot more of the landscape completed. So it's much more of a greener site, you could say. But we're looking close up on the lab office and canteen building, which is the building at the very front. We have a glass atrium then that connects to the back to the manufacturing facility just right behind that. And then over on the right-hand side, you can see the warehouse facilities. So they're all joined together. And what probably can't be made out of the background is the central utilities building. You can just see some of the chimneys peering up at the back. On site also, there's WuXi Vaccines, which is just further to the right. You can't see it in this image here. So WuXi Biologics and WuXi Vaccines are two separate companies. So WuXi Vaccines obviously specializing in the manufacture of vaccines, and WuXi Biologics, who specialize in mammalian cell therapy-based medicines. Again, so this is another perspective of the site, viewing the site from the west-hand side looking east. On the left-hand side here, you can actually see warehouse building. So it's a very large building with a capacity of 5,000 pallet storage spaces. Bottom left is our wastewater treatment plant. Bottom right is our backup generators and water storage. And just beyond the water storage containers, you also have the central utilities building. And over on the far right, just top right, you can see the temporary cabins that we're using at the moment while construction is complete. And actually, interestingly, just this week, we've reached a significant milestone where we're now at 100% construction completion. So that's a real significant milestone for us here on site. Just to give you an overview of some of the demographics that we actually have on the wuxi site here in Ireland, in terms of our diversity, 58% of the number of people employed here are male, 42% female. 85% of people are Irish and 15% are other nationalities. Of that other, that 15%, there's a total of 11 different nationalities represented in wuxi Biologics. The leadership team consists of 41% female and 59% male, which is very good compared to other industries within Ireland. So it's a very positive thing. And then in terms of qualifications, again, a diversity of qualifications here. 8% of people have diplomas, 63% have degrees, 28% have masters, and 4% have PhDs. Our age profiles, again, I suppose significantly, the largest cohort is between the ages of 20 and 30, which is at 41%, 26% at 31 to 40%, 27% between the ages of 41 and 50, and 7% at the 50 and above. And again, significantly, 70% of our hires are from the local community. So in the kind of the Louth area, in and around Monaghan, Armagh, County Down, County Meath. So again, it's a significant catchment area for the people of the general area. So it's a positive thing for the local communities here. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to present a quick overview on the manufacturing 6 and 7 processes. And these only represent an overview of, you could say, generic manufacturing processes. Every molecule that's brought in will have a unique manufacturing process, but there are some what you might call platform processes. So the first one I'm going to present is an overview of the MFG6 facility. And then the second one is, which is the perfusion facility, and the second one is the fed batch facility. So as I mentioned, just to reiterate, we are a contract manufacturing organization, and we do make drugs for other companies. wuxi Biologics don't have any of their own drugs. We do this exclusively for other clients. And here on site in Dundalk, we have drug substance manufacturing and not drug product. So the drug substance is the creation of the protein as it is produced by the cell line, and it is scaled up all the way through to the purification process. And then the drug product side, which isn't here in Dundalk, is performed elsewhere. We have drug product capability in our manufacturing site in Germany. So a quick overview of the MFG6 process. And we start our manufacturing process with our WCB, which is a working cell bank, where we take a vial. And within our inoculab, we scale up, and we might start where we inoculate or working cell bank vial from into a 125 ml shaker flask, grow the cells for a number of days, transfer to a 500 ml, and it's incubated at certain temperatures. And we scale all the way up to a 2 by 3 liter shaker flask, and then transfer to what's known as a wave bioreactor. So a wave bioreactor is, you could say, a much more basic form of bioreactor. It has all of the same controls, but it's a much smaller scale, and it's also a single-use bioreactor. Then we transfer to our 50 liter bioreactor, and you'll notice that they're all called N minus a certain value. And the N bioreactor is the main bioreactor where we start to produce and extract the protein of choice. And that's our production bioreactor. So we go from our 50 liter single-use bioreactor, we grow the cells there for up to 3 to 5 days, depending on the process. and then transfer the contents into a larger bioreactor. So you can see we're scaling up all of the time. And what makes MFG6 different to MFG7 is that it's a perfusion bioreactor. So it's almost like a continuous production process from the bioreactor, where you're extracting the protein on a continuous basis using a technology known as perfusion technology. And there are different platforms of perfusion technology. There's a hollow membrane. Hollow membrane technology is the typical form of technology where it retains the cells, but the protein is filtered out using a diaphragm that's connected to the filter membrane. And we can run these production or perfusion bioreactors for up to potentially 60 days, maybe even longer, depending on the process, where we're running, the cells are continuously growing for up to 60 days or even 100 days. And we're continuously extracting the protein out from the cell culture in the bioreactor. And at the same time as we're extracting, we're removing the protein and loading it onto one of the first purification steps, which is a chromatography step. So those who are familiar with chromatography, this is where your protein binds to a particular resin or a ligand on the resin. You then wash the contents of the bound fragments on the chromatography resin. You remove as many of the impurities as possible, and then you elute your protein so that it's much more purer form. As you elute it with a specific buffer, so that you're really only removing the desired protein, and you capture it, and that's called your eluate. This just gives you an overview of the complication or how complex the perfusion bioreactor is. So if we're growing the cells for maybe between 30, 60 or 100 days, we obviously need to balance and control our process. So you have your perfusion bioreactor, your cell retentate device, which is your perfusion technology. So as you're harvesting the material into your clarified harvest tank, there's quite a number of process controls that you need to make sure they're in place. You need to, at the same time you're extracting your protein, you need to be topping up with media. And to control your viable cell density, so you obviously, if your cells are growing, you don't want to let your cells grow exponentially and have the numbers running in a kind of an uncontrolled manner. So you need to perform what's known as a bleed, which is where you're controlling the number of cells within the culture. And at the same time, you're adjusting your pH of your media to make sure that it's the optimum conditions for your cells. And at the same time, you're controlling your oxygen to keep the cells alive. And you're also, your pH as well is also controlled using the addition of CO2. So it's quite a complex process. And we use quite complex automation to control a lot of these processes. The downstream step, again, so there's an additional chromatography step. There's quite a number of different chromatography steps actually in the downstream area. Some processes could have 3, some processes could have 4. You also perform a step known as virus inactivation. So there are no viruses present in the process whatsoever, but a regulatory requirement for biologics processes is that you remove the potential for viruses to be present anywhere within your processes for patient safety. And there are different means of performing virus inactivation. One could be a detergent addition, and the another more typical form is low pH inactivation, where you inactivate the pool by dropping the pH below, say, a target pH of about 3.6. You hold it for a certain duration, and that inactivates enveloped viruses. Depth filtration is also performed to remove any particulates, followed by another chromatography step, which may be used to remove nucleotides, amino acids, and so on. And then there's a virus filtration step. Again, this is all part of the regulatory requirements to remove the potential for viruses within the process. And then you perform your final UFDF, which is a kind of a buffer exchange step to make sure that the product is contained in a stabilized solution. And you also adjust it to make sure that it's at the correct concentration before you do what's known as formulation, which is an addition of a final buffer to stabilize the product. And then you transfer the product pool into containers for -80 storage. And those containers then are stored in our warehouse at -80 for stability purposes, and they're sent to our drug product site. Okay, so the fed batch process is probably somewhat different. Excuse me. So you have an inox step, which again is the same, where you're expanding up your culture from a work and cell bank file, and you transfer to you expand your culture in shaker flasks, your wave bioreactors as well before you go to your single-use 50-liter bioreactor. Again, you can expand up. Now we have the capacity to expand up to 4,000-liter production bioreactors, which is the largest in class at the moment. So we have the largest single-use facility in the world at the moment here in MFG 6 and 7, and the capacity in MFG 7 is 4,000-liter single-use bioreactors is quite novel within the industry. What makes a fed batch process different from a fusion process is that your duration within your production bioreactor, which is your end bioreactor, is typically anywhere between 10 and 14 days. And you let the cells grow up to that duration, and you don't harvest off on a daily basis. So what you do is at the end of your production phase, you harvest using a centrifuge step, which separates the cells from the protein of choice. And then you perform your purification steps. Typically, you'd also perform a depth filtration step, which is the pod filtration step. And then you move into your purification process, which again is very similar to the purification process in MFG6, where you'll have an initial chromatography step followed by low pH virus inactivation, depth filtration, and then you could have 2 additional chromatography steps, or perhaps even a third chromatography step after your virus inactivation, followed by virus filtration and your UFDF to adjust for your protein concentration and to perform a buffer exchange. And then again, the formulation of bulk fill is the same. And products, again, depending on stability, could be stored anywhere from maybe 2 to 8 degrees all the way down to -40 or -80 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the manufacturing process. Again, it's a rapid introduction. And again, biologics processes by their very nature vary from one product to the next. So that just gives you an overview of a fed batch and a perfusion process. So I'm going to hand you over to Dara now, who's going to give you a quick update on the proud culture here in wuxi Biologics.
Great. Thanks for that, Ronan. That was brilliant. Good morning, everyone. And just in the interest, and Anthony, you might come in if possible. Just I'm thinking about time now. I might actually pass it over to Summer Morgan, who's one of our BPAs at the minute, just to tell us a little bit about her journey so far and after graduating from DKIT. So Summer, I'll pass it over to yourself before I go through a few bits.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So as mentioned, I'm a DKIT graduate. I graduated back in 2019, the BSc in Pharmaceutical Science. I suppose my career journey started in a similar setting here at the last in-person careers fair at DKIT. Since then, I went straight to becoming a BPA. I work in the inoculation labs to start up the upstream process, as you would have seen in Ronan's slides. And I've also been trained up to be a trainer, so I roll out training to other BPAs, and I work in the CQP department helping out documentation. So there's various copious amounts of opportunities to grow within the company. It's a great setting to start off your career when you're jumping into the bioprocess industry straight out of college.
Great. Thanks a million for that, Summer. That's brilliant. And then I'm going to pass it over now to Carol McGrath. So Anthony introduced Carol. So Carol is one of our manufacturing graduates at the moment and has also come through our internship program as well. So Carol, I'll pass it over to you for just a little bit about your journey so far.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. So just to give you a quick bit of background, so I just graduated this year. So I've just joined the graduate program there 3 weeks ago. It's my 3rd week back at wuxi. But I interned here last year for 8 months between January and September. So my degree was genetics and cell biology. So to be honest, I understood how to grow up cells and had a high level understanding of chromatography, but didn't really know how to do it on a big scale. So coming in here, obviously a little bit nervous, but you learn everything you need to know here very quickly. Everyone's very helpful. So I spend my time with the manufacturing technology team who support manufacturing. So I got to work across MFG 6 and MFG 7. So I gained really valuable knowledge of 2 processes. So not even just one. So it was a really great opportunity. And then I was able to come back, and I'm excited to be back focusing more on downstream 6 now. So really good opportunity to, again, like someone said, just gain as much knowledge as you can early in your career.
Great. Thanks for that, Carol. And I suppose, you know, for Summer and for Carol, it's 2 really good success stories. There's lots of them, but it just goes to show that, you know, coming in on the intern program, the opportunity is there to return as a graduate the following year as well, when you finish whatever it might be, the bachelor's or master's. So it's a really nice way of seeing it. And obviously then for Carol to be able to have touched on manufacturing technology, but also now then moving more towards the downstream manufacturing. That's the sort of exposure you will get in a startup with Wuxi Biologics. So for me, what I want to just cover for everyone now is just a little bit, I'm just going to touch on a little bit about our proud culture. So I'll move to the next slide here. So I don't know if everyone's going to be able to see this, but it's just, I suppose, an idea around what we're trying to achieve with our culture rollout at the moment. So as our biologics facility is in startup, the nature of that means that the HR rollout is also in startup at the moment. So the beauty of that is that everyone gets to contribute towards our good working culture and trying to build out on our culture. So you can see our 5 pillars that we have here are passion, reward, ownership, unity, and determination. So when we look at passion first, it's about customer focus, continuous learning, positive attitude and energy. Reward, tackling tough tasks, embracing change, and giving back to society. Ownership, which means accountability, excellence of efficiency, honesty, and ethics. Unity, which for us looks like teamwork, diversity, inclusion, respect, and communication. And determination, strong growth, strong execution, growth mindset, and calculated risks. And like I was saying, the beauty of that is that everyone on the site participated in culture workshops to contribute to this proud culture. So anything you look at there, you can see that some of our employees would have touched and contributed towards building out on our culture. And that's going to continue. So people that are looking to come into a new environment where it's really fresh and exciting, Wuxi Biologics is going to open that door and be that platform for you. So just before I finish up on my side, just to give an idea, there might be some questions around this. Our manufacturing graduate and internship roles are going to be posted now over the next couple of weeks. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sharing the links of them programs with Anthony, and hopefully we'll get it posted on the intranet internally. There's always questions on these folks. So the company is very contactable in terms of the talent acquisition and HR department if there's any questions. So this is hopefully a good introduction to what that looks like at the moment and what we have for next year, just in terms of numbers wise. And of course this could change, but we're going to have 12 manufacturing graduates joining the company next year. So this is part of the cohort. And then for our internship, we're going to have 9 positions, which have actually gone up now as well, which is great. There's a real growth there we're seeing. So in terms of these 9 positions, we're going to have 5 across our upstream and downstream for 6 and 7, as Ronan has touched on. And then we're going to have some going for inoculation departments. We're going to have 2 then for manufacturing technology and 2 for manufacturing science and technology. So there's a really good scope there across the internships and our graduates for 2022. It would be remiss of me not to say that we might have people that are maybe focused more towards operations and engineering on the call this morning. So just to kind of cover that off, we don't have the numbers finally set yet, but we're going to have operations and engineering internship programs this year also, which is great. So operations covering the likes of IT, environmental health and safety, and then for engineering we'll have process validation, utilities, and a couple more that will cover underneath that bucket as well. So it's not just the manufacturing side, we also will have different areas of the business that will benefit from our internship program next year as well. So yeah, no, look, from our side, Anthony, I don't know if there's going to be any questions or we can take them offline, but
Brilliant.
I just wanted to say thanks a million.
No problem at all. Guys, thank you so much. I think it's really valuable for a number of reasons. I think Ronan has given everybody the answer to the question, what you know about wuxi. Can you explain the process to us? So I think in the presentation itself will be really valuable, and thank you so much to both Summer and Carl for given their experience. There's a couple of questions in. We are tight in time, but we'll get through them. Dara, thanks for covering off all the opportunities, and we'll obviously keep in contact with you around those, and we'll post them up in Careers Connect. Question for Summer. As a DKIT grad, I suppose you're going to get this one. One thing you know now that you wish you knew in your final year?
To not put too much pressure on yourself. Just be yourself in your interview. It's a very nice work culture here. I know it was a 2-stage interview for myself. That can be a bit daunting. You're like, oh God, to get through one, to have to get through a second. But they were both so they flew. Like, you got through it. It's just very nice, calm environment. You know, everyone wants to get to know you, your experience, and that. It's just, don't put too much pressure. That's what I would have liked to have known back at the time, because it is a bit of a daunting experience having to go through an interview.
Yeah, and just to say to everybody, obviously, Careers and Employability Centre are here to support you through that interview process if we can. Carl, then there's a quick question for yourself around why you chose wuxi ultimately, and you spoke about your intern experience. Was that the major factor in deciding to progress onto the graduate program? And then maybe a small bit on the graduate program itself and the structure of it.
Yeah, sure. So so the main reason I chose wuxi was because it was a greenfield site. So it was a startup. So I knew there would be lots of opportunity to learn, and that definitely did happen. So you kind of get exposed to more things than you probably usually would if a company was in sustaining phase, because people are needed on different things. So yeah, and then so that was really why I chose wuxi to start, and why I decided to stay on for the graduate program is just that experience of getting so much process knowledge when I pretty much had none before. And again, it's been said before, but the culture here is really nice and everyone's always helpful. So you should never be afraid to ask a question, even if it seems silly. Someone will always help you. So that's why. There was a third part to that question.
Just the actual structure, the structure of the graduate program itself.
So the graduate program, it was really nice this time starting with 9 other people. So you don't start on your own, which is really nice. I know the first time there was only myself and a couple of other people. So it was nice having so many. You're brought through the onboarding process. So they have lots of meetings set up. So you get to learn the different departments. You get to meet leads like Ronan and the other leads for MSG7 nice and early on, so you have an idea of the structure of the company. And then so it's, as I said, it's only my 3rd week, so maybe Dara might be able to speak a little bit more on the structure, but
it's all ahead of you, as they say. Yeah, but I know it was just great to hear that, of the onboarding process and the fact that you're meeting key technical people really early on. I think that's really important in any graduate program, because it means that effectively they're developing leaders, and that's what you guys are looking for. So Daria, if you want to, we have a couple of minutes if you want to develop on the graduate program itself.
And thanks, Anthony. And I think Carol made a really good point there about the graduate program. It can be maybe looked at as it's going to be a daunting experience. We make sure that people are, with peers on day one. Anthony, that's really important for us. So you're going to be joined of a cohort between 10 and 12 people. Everyone's on the same boat. Everyone can share that same nervous energy. That's really important. But as Carol has touched on, it's about setting people up for success, Anthony. And that starts with your, even pre-boarding, so making sure that there's good communication with the graduates before the start. It's the same for the interns. The first thing that they'll do is they'll be assigned a buddy, and then a really comprehensive, enjoyable 2 weeks of induction. So as Carol has touched on there, meeting with the likes of Ronan, meeting with other people from the business to ensure that you know what the business structure looks like, right? That's really important for getting set up. In terms of the bigger picture, Anthony, our graduate program at the moment, as the company is in startup, and like I touched on the culture piece, the graduate program is going to evolve over time, right? So at the minute it's set as an 18-month program. That could potentially change, right? We're going to hope that in the future there's going to be rotations within that. But people coming in are going to be working so closely with manufacturing, and because things are so busy and there's so much to do, the likes of Carl there is going to get such a good exposure to manufacturing, nearly as if you were coming in as a bioprocess associate. There's not a huge differentiation between, you know, the responsibilities of the position. So you're given, you know, responsibility, but then you have a platform behind you of being set up for success, that it's not going, okay, you know, I'm potentially going to be going on shift here in 6 months' time. This can be done. There's a really good, you know, employee assistance structure around that, Anthony, so no one feels left isolated, you know, no one's on their own. And I think as the program evolves, people are just going to get more exposure to the business as well. So, Carol, thanks so much for your input on it as well. And Anthony, the program will evolve as well.
Yeah,
so.
no, that's brilliant. And as you say, it's still, even though it doesn't feel like it or look like it, it's still in startup phase. So there's still a huge amount of work to be done. I've no other questions. We're probably just slightly over. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us, and why wouldn't they? It's just wonderful opportunities. And thanks to wuxi again for all the support over the last, hard to believe, only 2.5 years. Dara will be in touch with myself around those graduate opportunities and the internship opportunities, and we'll pop those up in Careers Connect so all students have access to them. For students who are watching this on demand, if you do want to get in touch with any of the talent acquisition team, please just come down to the careers office and we'll provide details to you. But for now, Carl, Summer, Ronan, Dara, and Christina, thank you so much for being part of our virtual career series. It's been an absolute pleasure and a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
And Andy, thank you for having us.
No problem.
Thanks a million, Anthony.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye-bye.